You're listening to the Today in Manufacturing podcast.
Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Today in Manufacturing podcast. With me this week are Jeff Ranke and Anna Wells. We each have more than 15 years of experience covering the manufacturing industry. Every week, we take the 5 most popular stories on our websites and discuss the implications they have on the industry going forward. Before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, David, or Anna at in.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube at IN Magazine so you can join us live every Thursday. Jeff, how you doing this week?
Good, man. How about yourself?
I am fired up. It's been an exciting day already, and I'm excited to bring that energy to the podcast. Anna, how you doing?
No shortage of energy from you typically, David, so I look forward to it.
I know, but this one isn't so much chemical as just like sheer adrenaline from making like major life purchases.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know this about and maybe this is one of those disclosure things about closing a new mortgage where they actually print out every payment you need to make within the next 30 years. And it was just like, they gave me 20 pages of and then in July of 2053, you will be done.
That sounds bleak to look at.
It was. So of course I wanted to page through each single page, just Oh, and we'll see a slight dip there. Nice. But no, excited to be here for the podcast, and let's jump into it. But before we get into our first story, we have another message from our new sponsor. And before we get into our first story, I just want to remind you that BigCommerce provides modern e-commerce technology that works with your existing systems. ERP, OMS, CRM, no problem. Whatever existing business tools and technologies you use today, BigCommerce can integrate using pre-built one-click integrations or customize your automation with its APIs. Make the move to BigCommerce today. And now, our first story of the week. Military vehicle built to be blown up. Rochelle Smart Armored Vehicles claims to have a new military vehicle that can stand up against multiple powerful attacks. The Senator MRAP is a 4-wheel drive, 6.7-liter turbo diesel military vehicle based on the Ford F-550. MRAP stands for Mine Resistant Ambush Protected. The Senator has a V-shaped hull designed to deflect explosive energy away from the cabin. While the wheels and engine aren't shielded, passengers in the cabin should be protected. The manufacturer recently put the Senator through its paces, including blast testing at a NATO-certified U.S.-based independent lab. The testing included blowing up more than 13 pounds of TNT placed under the wheels and under the belly. The vehicle persevered with no harm to the dummy representing potential occupants, and the Senator MRAP passed NATO tests for ballistic and blast resistance. Jeff, that's one tough truck.
Yeah, it's supposed to be, right? I mean, the first thing that I thought of when we started looking at this story was the simple fact of the impact that IEDs have had in war zones for our soldiers. We're talking about improvised explosive devices. They're responsible, according to a congressional report, for almost 44% of all U.S. deaths in war zones over the last 15 years. So when you look at the design of this type of vehicle, you would see that would be as a direct response to those types of situations, and obviously a huge part of preserving soldier welfare. You can also see from, I guess, a market demand perspective, increased in urban warfare. That's what this vehicle is meant to do. More ambushes, tight quarters, things like that in terms of protecting the occupants. So it makes a lot of sense. I think one of the things, and I know you're going to get into this a little bit more, but I think we're going to continue to see more of this type of military technology coming under development because essentially with things going on in Ukraine, we've got a live test lab type situation. Yeah. And we've seen advances in a lot of other military technologies such as camouflage. We've seen a lot of things going on with drones and unmanned aerial vehicles. And I think we're probably going to see the biggest development is really cybersecurity. There's so much going on right now in that conflict from a cybersecurity perspective, both sides of it, in terms of going after infrastructure and utilities and things like that. So there's going to be a lot coming out, a lot of developments there. The positive is, and again, talking about the thing that leads to the thing. Yeah. Ideally, a lot of these developments, especially here when you're looking at where they base the design off of a Ford truck, we could also see this come into more of a mainstream dynamic. So if we can take some of these lessons learned and some of the product development concepts and apply it to civilian vehicles, mean that we're going to be safer in, that sounds great, especially when we see the number of incidents on crashes going up. We see vehicles now that are going to have batteries that if they do catch fire, burn super hot and create a lot of safety concerns. I think having this type of product development in place and continuing to progress could have bigger effects beyond just battlefield or law enforcement.
Yeah, we need the sound effect pad. So when we get, the catchphrase, it's like, yeah, whip, 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 yeah.
Wow, you are going today, man.
I was just like, he said it already. He said it. Anna,
we've got a couple of those though in this one.
Yeah, no, it's a good episode. Stay tuned. Jack's even excited. He just said, "Let's go." Agreed, Jet. Oh, there it is.
No.
Already working on it.
Put that
terrible.
away.
Anna, 13 pounds of dynamite just sounds like a lot to me. I mean, I had a one instance with a single stick and a dryer that was enough to scare the bejesus out of me for the rest of my life. So, I mean, watching the video of these tests, I don't think it truly captures just how powerful of a blast these MRAPs survived.
Yeah, I mean, it's really incredible to look at this. And, Jeff, I think you brought up some really good points around how this could be utilized in more consumer type applications. And I totally agree. I think that's awesome. I think the military has a very special problem on its hands, or a very unique problem on its hands right now that has a lot to do with technology from a solution standpoint. But it's interesting because the military is missing its recruiting goals, right? So technology solutions are helpful on the battlefield, but also they have this sort of tangential effect when it comes to safety. So if you look at the Army missed its recruiting goal in 2022 by 25%, which amount to about 15,000 active duty soldiers. While other branches met their goals by slim margins that year, fiscal year 2023 projections suggest the Army and Air Force will miss their goal by 10,000, while the Navy expects to be short by 6,000 soldiers. So this is a big deal, right? And I think anytime technology like this can be deployed that significantly reduces mortality risk for a soldier in a combat situation, I think you remove one of those recruitment barriers, right? That's common sense, and because we've seen automation take on a lot of super risky military activities, that's been exciting, but there's always going to be situations where you have to send in a human. And if you have to enter that combat zone and you can survive getting shelled or being shot at, then you're making it easier, I think, for people to say yes to enlisting.
Yeah.
So, of course, watching this tech be publicly proven, it just makes a big impact from almost like a marketing standpoint for the military to say, this is how we're going to protect you if you make this monumental life decision.
I understand the safety aspect of it, but Jeff, a lot of times we talk about how new tech advancements in manufacturing should be selling points for manufacturers in terms of attracting, more tech-focused younger talent. Is that a sales point for potential recruits? Are people interested in joining the militaries because there's cool technology that could potentially be at their disposal?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in a lot of instances, you can look at it from, more of an IT side. I think that was one of the initial hooks, if you will, from a technological perspective. But now when you get into really broadcasting some of the other elements of whether it's vehicles, weaponry, or whatever. And again, there is a relatable element for a lot of these things when you're talking about using lasers, working with lasers for potential for some of these missile guidance systems or some of these other weapon systems. When you're talking about the different materials that are being used, 3D printing, are you kidding me? When you're talking about potentially taking a job, for example, as an armor which is more like basically making sure the weapon systems are functional and keeping inventory for all that. And now you're including 3D printing, for example, in that type of job because you can print parts out for weapons. Or in this instance, when you're talking about the very latest vehicle technology and safety, yeah, I think these are definite hooks. I think it's a great point that Anna made. I think it also, when the potential recruit can go to his loved ones or her loved ones and say, hey, look, this is the cool stuff I'm going to be working on, and it's really focused on making sure I come home. Yeah, I can drop some barriers there too, potentially. So absolutely 100%. I think that's one of the things outside, ironically enough, of the Marine Corps that all of the other branches have really failed to really take advantage of and really explore and really put out there in a more, I guess, promotional type of way. Yeah. The Marines have always been really good. That's why they're the one branch that has always hit their recruitment goals. Okay. Because they really do tout all the cool stuff that they do.
Yeah, the cool gear.
Yeah.
I looked into the company a little bit and found a couple of fascinating facts. Rochelle is a Canadian company, and it's owned by this guy, Roman Shimonov. He's actually an immigrant from Israel, and until this year, he'd been selling this Senator mostly to security and law enforcement agencies in the U.S. and other allies. The vehicle was even used to transport NASA astronauts to a SpaceX launch to the International Space Station in May 2020, which is kind of a weird, fun fact. But his wife is from the Ukraine. So when war broke out, he actually saw an opportunity to like both grow his business and help Ukrainians. He actually, as he ramped up production tenfold when Russia invaded Ukraine, and he staffed his factories with people fleeing Ukraine.
Wow.
Rochelle can complete 2 of these Senator vehicles per day, and they can be on the ground in Ukraine in a month. And that's just, I can't imagine that kind of incredible surge in the undertaking that took to make that happen. They do specify that they do not sell to individuals or rogue nations, but found it's, sometimes you don't realize how your company is going to possibly play a bigger role in your life or the life of your loved ones. And I mean, he has the opportunity to do some real change for, his wife's family and other people in the country. All right. Our next most popular story. Engineer warned of imminent risk days before Iowa building collapse. Last week, a structural engineer said a wall of a 100-year-old apartment building in Iowa was at imminent risk of crumbling. The building owner and city officials did nothing, including warning residents. Then on May 28th, the building partially collapsed, killing 3 people. The 6-story building collapsed shortly before 5 p.m. on a Sunday. Rescuers initially pulled 7 people from the building in their initial response and helped 12 others who could walk out on their own. Later, 2 more people were rescued just hours after authorities said they were going to begin setting up for demolition. City officials say that they didn't order an evacuation because they relied on the engineer's assurances that the building remained safe. Well, the city released documents that show previous warnings over unstable parts of the building, and some of them were pretty wild. A report that was dated May 24th, just 4 days before the collapse, said parts of the brick facade, quote, appear ready to fall imminently. So it wasn't just cooking up the copy a little bit. That's what it said in the report, and could be a safety hazard. The report also detailed insecure window openings, including one that was bulging outward and looked poised to fall. Still, officials didn't evacuate the 50 tenants. The city's chief building official, Trishna Pradhan, has resigned. He visited the building on May 25th and erroneously reported that it had passed an inspection. But all of this came down to a technical glitch. He tried to say the inspection was incomplete, but Jeff, this software had a bug in the system and switched it to passed.
That's irrelevant. Okay. Yeah. I mean, whatever. Who cares? This goes back to February. They had to go all the way back to February when this first was basically tenants were talking about leaks in the building. They were talking about a number of other issues. They had structural concerns. This isn't new. This didn't come up just with this city employee of filing this report and potentially checking the wrong box or clicking the wrong thing from a drop-down menu. Okay. That's not where this came from. Again, back in February, they knew there was issues here.
Yeah.
At that point in time, the owner of this building, and I'm speculating here, but it kind of feels to me like they went out and found somebody who would basically say, yeah, we're good. There's no imminent danger here. Okay. We're good. No problem. Then somebody comes back in May, says, this isn't imminent danger, tells the city. So along the lines, you had another engineering company that knew about some of the issues. You knew all the people in the building knowing that there was issues. You had the owner of the building knowing there was an issue. You had the city knowing that there was an issue here. And everybody was just kind of like,
Yeah.
That's the issue here. That's what I don't understand is how there cannot be somebody in this whole chain who wasn't raising a bigger stink.
Yeah.
Especially after we've seen other areas. I mean, that whole thing with the Florida condo, it was in the news for a month.
Yeah, but that was like
fallout from that.
Yeah, I mean, that was cracking in the basement though. Like, and I mean,
but I'm saying that should elevate awareness and concerns whenever you see this. The other thing is we talk about these types of stories in other countries all the time. And what we always say there is, well, you know, they don't have the type of infrastructure that we have. They don't have the type of regulatory bodies that we have. This happened here. This is Davenport, Iowa, where the front of a building fell off.
Yeah.
I mean, this is ridiculous that this, number one, was allowed to go this long and that there wasn't, for lack of better terms, checks and balances in place so that somebody along the lines could make a stink about this and that would have been responded to. How these people were allowed to be in this building for this long after the first flags went up in February is kind of mind-blowing. And what's interesting is from a financial perspective, now you see all these lawsuits coming out. I think the ones that are going to be the biggest fault is the city.
Yeah.
There's things in place to potentially protect the company, but I think the city is going to be in a lot of trouble because, again, they knew about this since February.
Yeah. Well, is any of it on, I don't want to say on the residents, but if you see a wall or a window bowing out of a wall, like at some point you have to realize, like, it is not safe to be here.
Okay, but I think
we
can appreciate personal financial situations that may seem like, what other option do I have?
That's true. It's like that or maybe be homeless. Anna, part of me feels for this Trishna Pradhan, who was essentially fired as a result of a software bug. You know, we talk about digitalization, but this is kind of an example of how nothing is foolproof. There's human error. And at first I thought that a wrong box was checked, but literally it was just a bug that changed it from incomplete to passed and all of a sudden made it, you know, a building seem safe that was not.
Yeah. And Pradhan, to clarify, he or she was not fired.
Right. Yeah.
They resigned.
That's why I said essentially fired.
They said that it was not as an alternative to being fired.
Right.
But probably this person feels horrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know that's just another terrible component to like this, you know, disgusting pile of nonsense that, you know, there's so many people at fault here. I think that's clear, right?
There's a t-shirt, this pile of nonsense.
Disgusting pile of nonsense.
That's good. I like that.
Yes. And this person resigned due to, quote, the magnitude of the situation and the error that was made.
Right.
But I mean, I also, when the city official was saying that, I also kind of heard like, we do need a fall guy like right away, right now.
Yeah, potentially. And what's tough is you don't know who is really going to take the blame here and if it's going to fall on the appropriate parties, right? WQAD, which is a local ABC affiliate, recently published a really good interview with a real estate lawyer named David Nelson, who is attempting to clarify how this might be handled with the ownership because this is an LLC. I think the fear potentially is that this Andrew Wald, who has other documented cases of having like multiple code violations going on at once at these properties.
Slumlordism.
I mean, that's the feeling I am getting. So the question is, you know, whether he'd be able to hide behind his LLCs, which include Davenport Hotel LLC, which is, you know, pertaining to this case, but as at least two others that he owns. And in the case of a limited liability company, this Nelson basically confirmed that the company is the owner of the property. And so the insurance and assets of that company would really be the limit as far as you could reach back. Nothing, personally from this individual could be used to pay off the debt that needs to be paid here. So he added that while there's always a way to try to pierce any type of limited liability entity, you need to prove something egregious took place, something outrageous or callous, a disregard for safety, fraud, something like that, but not speculation. I think when you see this $300 fine that they're levying on this and the cost of the demolition, does this hit only the LLC and never the person behind it? We might see it play out that way. Because you have these other two engineers involved, I think that kind of muddy the waters. That one that they hired privately, and I agree with you, Jeff. I think that was a person that, they got a guy who will go, But for him to go on record and say there was no imminent threat, and then also for technically this to be filed with the city as passing inspection, I think that could also muddy the waters to maybe absolve this person from any type of egregious conduct that might allow you to pierce that limited liability veil. So to me, I think it may be really hard to prove that he acted with impunity here, and this might end with the LLC just folding. And the sad part is that he owns these other, he's got sort of diverse set of companies. So he owns these other companies. Maybe one goes bankrupt and he just continues on with his life. Yeah.
Because he's protected by the LLC.
And here's the thing I didn't get. You had the one city inspector who went out, whatever it was, 4 days before this happened, and wrote on there was imminent danger. Yeah. How does checking the wrong box or the bug that goes from, incomplete to passed, if there's still doesn't that language just create its own red flag in and of itself?
I mean, you would like to think so, but I just think of bureaucratically, hey, I checked the box I was supposed to check. Where reread something like that, and it's why weren't you at the front door screaming at people to get out of the building? Right. And I know that we don't want to necessarily use the word slumlord, but as this building kind of fell to pieces, tenants were complaining about a bunch of things. There was no heat. There was no hot water for weeks or months at a time. There was mold, water leaking from the ceilings and toilets. So this building was in shambles. And I mean, if you look at the fact that he bought it in 2021 for about $4 million, obviously there wasn't a lot of value there. And I mean, I wonder if he just bought it knowing the shape it was in, without any intention of ever fixing anything up.
You think a $4 million real estate investment is not a big deal?
Well, I mean, if it's a 50-unit apartment complex, I don't know. I guess I feel like
$4 million. That was the other thing that kind of caught my eye, though. If you're going to invest that much, I don't know. Wouldn't you want to keep it?
Make sure the walls stand. Yeah. Simple. I mean, I get making. You don't want out-of-pocket expenses like heat and hot water or toilets that don't leak, but you need walls to get that rent check. All right. Well, our next most popular story, a little bit on the lighter side of things. Brewery founders buy their company back from Anheuser-Busch. In 2011, cousins Nathan Kelishek and Chris Zieber built their own brewery in North Carolina. When the tap room opened in 2013, Appalachian Mountain Brewery was the first continuously operating brewery in the college town of Boone. It was making some award-winning beers and ciders. In 2014, just a year later, the owners partnered with Craft Brew Alliance. This is a collection of small brewers linked to the industry giant Anheuser-Busch. Well, Anheuser bought the Craft Brew Alliance in 2021 as part of a strategy to fold more craft brewers into its operations. AMB's original founders continued to lead the company as its ties to Anheuser-Busch solidified. The cousins stuck with their baby. But then the seltzer boom and other canned cocktail alternatives exploded onto the market, and Anheuser-Busch pivoted from craft beer to beer alternatives and scaled back on craft. Appellation wasn't actually a part of these cuts, but instead, Anheuser-Busch sold the company back to Kelishek and Zieber. And now the cousins have plans to grow, not just expanding the original location in Boone, but a new tap room outside of Asheville. And this is kind of a really cool story of building a company up from nothing, having big beer swoop in and buy your baby, and then having an opportunity to set it free again.
Yeah, superficially, when I just saw the headline, I was like, oh, that's kind of an interesting story arc. But just reading into it, it's actually even more interesting when you read all the details of what happened here. So you can assume maybe that the founders saw the writing on the wall when they partnered with Craft Brew Alliance, makers of big brands like Red Hook and Kona, while somehow still being characterized as a craft beer company. Anyway, but you could also make the case for the fact that maybe these cousins at Appellation didn't plan to become a part of this giant powerhouse, because they were acquired outright by Craft Brew Alliance in, I think, 2018. And then in 2021, all of that was bought by AB InBev. So that original partnership for them with CBA had taken place to help them increase production and expand distribution across the Carolinas. And then, and the fact that these two founders are still there suggests to me, after all these, multiple acquisitions and working for like one of the biggest beer companies in the world now, is that maybe they were largely treated like a bolt-on, probably benefiting in some ways, from the economies of scale, the market access, those kind of things, but also contending now with being under the corporate thumb of a big company and also watching the profits go in the coffers of this big company.
Right.
Not to mention the very tumultuous market in the last few years around craft beer, which has probably created some challenges, especially when you can't make your own decisions and you're tied to this big name. And I think these brands suffer the most because they lose their street cred a bit as true craft brewers, not to mention that feeling of maybe being lost in the shuffle of a corporate web and maybe losing your identity a little bit. And then your hands are tied with marketing. And so there's a lot of limitations that happen, I think, when you're part of a big team like that. In this case, they got I think, tremendous boost in a short amount of time with that deal with Bojangles.
Oh, yeah.
Where they...
the fried chicken beer?
Fried chicken beer, some sort of twisted tea.
An alcoholic sweet iced tea.
Yeah, alcoholic sweet tea, which sounds horrible.
I mean, it doesn't sound horrible, but then it sounds actually maybe a refreshing summer beverage. And then you see the Bojangles fried chicken branding on it, and you're like, maybe that's a step too far. Like, I don't know.
Apparently it was very popular.
Yeah.
And so if you think about it, they were acquired in 2021 and then immediately got this huge boost from that marketing campaign. So to try to strike out on your own, in a time when AB InBev is maybe looking to selectively unload some assets, you can see why that was very appealing to them right now. Mm-hmm. It might have been an expensive lesson to get your company back after it's probably valued quite a bit higher than when you sold it in the first place. But the fact that these two founders are so closely tied to their brand and now can kind of tout the local ties and the history of it, I think they get a little bit of a boost too as they try to spin off, just being able to tell this whole story of like coming full circle.
Yeah. I see there were a couple of things in there. I feel like the purchase price couldn't have been crazy because these are still just two entrepreneurs.
Right, true.
Right. And I also wonder, do you think they were still with the company because there was some sort of clause that they had to stay with the company after it was acquired? Or do you think it was like more of a, hey, no, this is not as bad of a situation as we expected, and they stayed on?
I don't know if those clauses, if you can enforce that for very long.
Okay.
Having somebody sign like a long-term contract.
Well, I think Budweiser's intent, or excuse me, ABI here, I think their intent was basically, we're going to acquire these craft breweries and be hands off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We just want you to keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Didn't really work out that way.
Well, and Jeff, I know that everyone wants to pile on over the whole Bud Light blowback, but I think this one is on like White Claw, Press, mocktails, canned White Russians. Like the market pivoted right as big beer started buying up craft breweries. And, the big company wanted to go in one direction, and they kind of were left holding this bag full of craft brewers.
Yeah, 2021 seemed
of
late to me to be making like a big swing at craft beer.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Now, I think there's a lot of different lessons here. First of all, I will say this. From being in the Carolinas, sweet tea and fried chicken, that's like Coke and a hot dog up here. Okay. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
So
when I saw that.
Gotta move.
No, it was very successful in the region. It does not sound
David
good.
was
That's
attacking it. I just wanted
I
to
wasn't
say
attacking
how wrong he was yet again.
I was not attacking it. I was just saying that it sounded like a delightfully flavored beverage that, if all of a sudden they came out with like a Kentucky Fried Chicken seltzer, I wouldn't go running out to buy it, even if it was
not made of chicken.
I understand that, but I'm just saying sometimes it's hard to separate the brand from the actual flavor you're getting. As opposed to the Sonic beverages we recently tried and were delicious.
All right. Okay.
Just saying.
This whole thing with AB InBev in terms of all these acquisitions is kind of interesting. I actually came across a really good article breaking it down. It's on vinepair.com. Article by Dave Infante kind of talking about this whole process that AB InBev went through. Over the past 10, 15 years, they've acquired like 15 of these craft breweries. And when they acquired them, granted, this article is kind of biased, but when you look at some of the other information, I don't think they had a clue what to do.
Yeah.
They just basically said, hey, people are drinking this kind of beer.
Yeah.
Let's get these guys in here.
We need this beer.
And they really didn't have an idea. And it made me think a little bit about us. I mean, we're a smaller company, obviously, but we've had opportunities for acquisitions and things. And we've said no, even though it would have been really intriguing from a revenue perspective, it didn't fit. And I think that's what happened here eventually. Now, there's definitely other market factors, the evolution of different options in terms of cocktails and drinks and seltzers and all that good stuff. But part of it, I think this was just a horrible fit internally. Plus, then you had all of these other dynamics that are affecting craft breweries overall. The prices lately, man, prices for craft beer has gone way up. You really have to kind of be really attached kind of to the brand. And there are some local breweries around here that I'm okay with because they're local. You want to support that a little bit.
Agreed.
You pay a little bit more. Craft breweries have also been hit real hard by a lot of supply chain issues. There's been a lot of them who can't even put stuff in bottles. They can't get glasses. Aluminum costs have gone up for cans. All of those types of things have affected them. The war in Ukraine has affected them in terms of getting the wheat and grains that they need to make their beer. So there's a lot of different factors. And these should have been instances where a big company like ABI should have been able to sort of cover all of that. But again, when you get something internally where you're like, well, we don't want to mess with it because they're doing really good by themselves, but we don't want to become too attached to it because it's kind of trending downward right now. They didn't go all in. And as a result, I mean, they were cutting jobs at like 6 out of these 15 breweries that they acquired just to try to keep costs under control and make it look better. And again, I think it was just a bad fit right from the start, which is why it's awesome that these guys were able to retain control and basically go back to ABI and said, hey, maybe we're just not a good fit. Why don't you just kind of let us take this back?
Yeah. We'll do you the favor.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, I mean, the cousins said that they were grateful for their time at the company, for the support, collaboration, and even friendship of fellow craft brewers. But as Anna kind of said about like 2021 being late to get in the game, anyone that has walked down a craft brewery or a craft beer section in any size grocery store knew like, okay, this bubble's about to burst. Like, I mean, for me anyways, it seemed like it was, so big that all these little breweries are fighting for shelf space. And I mean, I don't know, maybe you know more about it, Jeff, because you buy it more often. But I mean, the few times that I buy it are when I'm buying it for softball or like a family gathering. And sure, I will look to see if it's hyper local. But then other than that, it's just like, oh my God, the selection's almost overwhelming.
How do you choose? Yeah.
I think we're in a bubble, to be honest, a little bit here in Wisconsin. I think we view it a little bit differently, especially like when you go to the grocery stores and all that. But nationally, there's no doubt. You just can't deny it. I mean, market share is down like 10% over the last 5 or 6 years. So there's definitely a different attitude there. And I think a lot of that came from the fact that you had some of these local breweries that were, they touted a little bit the fact that we were bought by ABI. We're bigger now. We're part of a bigger company. And when that happens, you should see some things that impact the consumer in terms of maybe pricing, availability, et cetera. And I don't think any of those things were realized because even though they were bought by this bigger company, they didn't really get access to a lot of those resources.
Yeah. I just want to really focus on how this is, in my eyes, an incredible success story, right? They kind of stayed on, they persevered at AB InBev, and then they got their baby back.
And then they got that Bojangles deal.
Yeah.
And then they got their baby back.
Right.
With a Bojangles logo on it.
After they signed
and if anybody looked at the actual label on the product, there wouldn't have been any confusion about that.
But if they looked at the label and saw a giant chicken brand on front of it and said, that might be some chicken flavored beverage, because it probably said
no one would
Bojangles.
ever think
that was your first thought?
Huge Bojangles and then sweet tea.
This must be chicken beer.
It's got to be chicken beer.
I will keep walking. Says
And don't get me
David.
Put a
wrong.
rooster on that.
I will buy chicken flavored items once to try it. You know, I'll do a chicken and waffle cereal, but just it's not going to be twice. So I'll try your fried chicken beer. Send it.
No, you won't.
No, I'd try a fried chicken seltzer though.
Would you?
I mean, everyone's interested. Bring back that taste test so we can get a bunch of people going, it's okay. like the tragic Arby's vodka incident of 19 or whatever that was. All right. Well, our next most popular story. Iron Air Battery Factory breaks ground in West Virginia. Form Energy held a groundbreaking and beam signing ceremony on Friday, May 26th to celebrate the start of construction of Form Factory 1, the company's first high-volume manufacturing facility. Form Energy is developing and commercializing a new class of cost-effective, multi-day energy storage systems. This $760 million 55-acre facility is going to make iron air batteries. Located in Weirton, West Virginia, Form Factory 1 will employ at least 750 people when it's operating at full capacity. The company selected the city after a year-long nationwide site selection process that included more than 500 other locations across 16 states. The state has committed $290 million to the project, which includes acquiring the property and starting infrastructure work, which is actually happening in the background of this beam signing. Form Energy will begin manufacturing and assembling its battery systems next year, and while the company has received major backing from the state, Senator Robert Karnes has been skeptical. Quote, "We've got a battery company that's never made a battery," he said in February. "I don't know how you could call that anything other than a wild gamble." Anna, is this a wild gamble? How big of one is it? And beam signings, more or less contrived than groundbreakings?
Less, for sure.
I mean, a beam signing seems legitimate because it's kind of like you're signing the beam when you're building a house, right?
Yeah, right.
Instead of, what was the story we recently where they like shipped the dirt into the facility in a neat little sandbox situation?
Just executives with shovels in a sandbox.
Yeah.
And there was like a display behind them, like a Zoom background almost of the outdoors.
Yeah. It was like, I mean, it was just shy of the executive trying to dig with the shovel upside down.
Yeah.
Just like, it's not working.
They weren't.
I hadn't heard of a beam signing before. I think
They
it's
weren't
kinda
selling
cool,
it.
I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
What was the question?
Oh, so is this... We had a lot of people online that were concerned about this being another Cylindra type situation.
Right, yeah.
The wild gamble of iron air battery systems.
So, of course, there's going to be naysayers on a project of this volume. That always happens. It's a lot of money to put out. I didn't know anything about iron air batteries.
No.
So I had to do a little research here. But so I looked at Form Energy's website and then I did a little additional research. And I guess the idea behind this iron air battery is that it's to store alternative energy for up to 100 hours, reducing the variability that comes with weather conditions, lack of sunlight, lack of wind, challenges that kind of hamper solar and wind use, for example.
Mm-hmm. And with the efficiency of power plants.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Getting there. And it relies on a process the company calls reversible rusting.
Interesting.
Yeah. According to their website, while discharging, the battery breathes oxygen from the air, converts the iron metal to rust, and then while charging, the application of an electrical current converts the rust back to iron, and the battery breathes out oxygen. So I think we all completely understand this now.
I definitely get it now. I'm ready to work there. Do you need a plant manager?
But yes, as you said, the company claims that it offers the energy storage system at a cost that's comparable to existing power plants. They believe they're tackling a big barrier in decarbonization by making it, alternative energy accessible at any time, all while using cheap and abundant resources like iron, water, and air, which I think that last part's a bit arguable. Water shouldn't be just an afterthought, right?
Yeah.
Iron you have to mine for. It's not just so. But they do take on the only other energy storage game in town, basically, which is lithium ion. We know that lithium is really difficult to get. There's a lot of risks around groundwater contamination. There's a lot of risks around fire. Popular Mechanics also pointed out that NASA was actually experimenting with iron air since the 1960s. So this technology has been around for a while. They also say that iron air will be 10 times cheaper than lithium ion and lasts 17 times longer.
Wow.
So you can see why Form Energy is excited about this, why West Virginia is kind of happy to go along for the ride. Of course, they have some proving to do, but they do have some buy-in already. So utility company Xcel Energy has already signed agreements with Form Energy to use the batteries in some retiring coal plants. They have 2 operations. And so this will kind of enable them to transition into alt energy is what their thought is. Form also closed a funding round in October to the tune of like almost $500 million.
Oh, really?
So there are some backers to this. There's some history to this technology. And there's a lot of upside to it if it does work. I think Jeff is going to talk a little bit more about the investment part on behalf of the state. I know that some people see it as a risk, but I think maybe a risk worth taking in this case.
Yeah, Jeff. So the company picked this site because of its historic steel community, the strong cultural heritage, direct access to rail, highways, and the river. So it's in an area that also has maybe recently been losing a little bit of industry.
Yeah.
And it could be a big win for them. And when we see in terms of like state investments, what does the state have all in? Like a little over $200 million. When it comes to some of these projects, like that's actually quite low.
Pretty palatable.
Yeah.
I'd agree. Last week we did that story about Master Lock in Milwaukee shutting down. And from my perspective was these are the types of plants that U.S. manufacturing you're going to lose after a certain amount of time. When it comes down to a durable good that is non-technical in terms of its production process, it's really appealing to save money and send that to Mexico. That's just a hard dynamic. I'm not advocating it, but it's a reality of where we live right now. So if you want to grow manufacturing, this is how you grow manufacturing in the U.S. right now, by looking at these different technologies where it's not just a person coming to work, punching a clock. It's somebody who needs to have an investment in that company, somebody who wants to learn and have a technological type of job where you're really contributing to a different type of product, okay? A new technology. This is going to create not only jobs, but a lot of excitement and bring, pardon the pun, energy to this community and to this state. It's different type of manufacturing. This is the type of stuff that if you want this in your state, you're going to have to, quote unquote, go out on a gamble for. I don't think it is a gamble, especially when you look at this company. They do have 3 other facilities that are all hiring right now. 2 of them are test labs. I think it's California and Massachusetts. They also have a pilot plant just outside of Pittsburgh. So they're not just a Johnny-come-lately looking for money.
Yeah.
They've also got a sound business model. When we look at the future, not just of our needs for power institutionally in our homes or in our businesses, but we're trying to push all this electric vehicle stuff out there. We've talked about the stress that's going to place on the grid. We need these types of technologies.
Yeah.
So if West Virginia is going to go out on a limb, if you will, and try to enable this company to come there and manufacture, if it's a gamble, it's the gamble we all need to be taking. Okay? This is what the future of manufacturing expansion looks like. I also just want to address a little bit more here with Senator Carnes. I mean, you guys know me. I lean conservative in my political perspectives. So it was disappointing to see a Republican senator come out with this vantage point. And it sort of just echoes the fact that this is nothing more than political diatribe back and forth. Okay. There was no real reason that he felt this was a gamble. He just basically had to disagree with the other guy.
Yeah, because it's who is it at the beam signing mansion? Joe Manchin.
Yeah.
Did you guys have an opportunity to see the beam signing ceremony? Because I didn't know that they sang one of the 4 state songs. Do you know what they sang?
The only song I know about West Virginia is Country Road.
That's what they sang. They all broke out into song and sang "Take Me Home, Country Roads." Could you? I mean, if you're just at that event, that would just. It is a great song, and it's one of those where like a handful of people start singing it, and then it just kind of grows, you know. So I thought that was, it was just like a very wholesome beam signing, which
You're really preoccupied with this beam signing.
I think I am preoccupied because it is unique, and I like it as a not diversion, but like it's a more useful PR stunt to me than the.
I think the symbolism's a lot stronger.
Yeah.
You know, you're basically putting your name on something. You're advocating it right there.
That's right. You're like committed to the structure rather than like overturning some of the soil that someone working much harder brought to the site to fill the sandbox.
Are you going to sign a beam in your new house that you just bought? Because you could do that today, as soon as today.
If the beams were exposed, we hopefully wouldn't have bought the house. But I do like the idea of like just ripping through the drywall to be like, honey, I got to sign this.
You don't have like any part of your basement that's not finished?
No, it's not. It's like, so maybe I could get up. There's like a weird tiny little crawl space.
There you go, crawl space.
I'll get up
beam
there.
Sign.
Yeah, we'll do that. Maybe we'll like, I don't know, paint handprints on the garage. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We'll make it our own really quick. And if we don't, the cats will. Producer Eric posted some of the promotional materials courtesy of Bojangles for us. And I just want to thank Eric for that. So hopefully we'll bring this up on the screen. And admittedly, you do initially see that Bojangles brand there. So you immediately think chicken. But then kind of really right in the middle, it does say hard sweet tea, steeped like we mean it. So
I'm thirsty right now.
I am going to drink something soon. And it's going to be intoxicating.
I would rather eat that lemon.
Anna looks at this marketing or this promo piece and she's like, why is the grass so bad? And give me a lemon.
Not sweet tea. I can't do it. It's too sweet.
All right. Well, Anna just doesn't have a palate for it.
Sorry, guys.
And plus, it tastes like chicken. All right. Our most popular story this week. Ford recalls Broncos. Drivers could be discouraged by seatbelts. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has found a problem that led to the recall of 176,000 Ford Bronco SUVs from model years 2021 through 2023. Drivers and front seat passengers are having difficulty accessing the metal portion of the vehicle's seatbelt when it's in a retracted position. They say it is so severe that the agency felt Bronco drivers and passengers could be discouraged to the point where they might not use seatbelts at all. Ford says, quote, the problem is only when the front seats are in one certain position, not all positions. But then the company didn't specify the position. One big question is how the issue got past engineering checks because the latch position doesn't comply with established federal motor vehicle safety standards. The fix is a trip to the dealer to have a sliding clip attached to keep the latch position to keep the latch in position, and tech writers have to add a section to the owner's manual on, quote, the appropriate use of what is effectively a fancy barrette. According to Autoblog, Anna, have you ever been discouraged by a seatbelt enough and that you just thought, you know what, we're going to go without it. I don't need it.
Like, I have been discouraged.
Like maybe when you're in that middle seat in the back and you got to dig under the seat.
Yeah. Well, and if you've ever been in that middle seat and you're like in a cab or something, you got like 2-3 shots at that seatbelt and then you just have to give up.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, if you're in the middle seat, you got 2 people next to you. Yeah. So like you're just fishing behind everybody. And at some point, it gets weird.
I know. At whatever point it gets weird, you just have to be like, this is just my fate.
You have to accept it. Yeah. Please don't crash.
Right. I think the article caused some eye rolling, primarily because of the use of the term discouraged, which to me like brought to mind one of those infomercials where they're like in black and white, just like stumbling through, like the person is just struggling hard.
Yeah. Do you have problems with doorknobs?
Yeah.
It just won't turn.
There's got to be a better way. It just sounds like an angry child. Like that's what I'm picturing, is just like a stomping around mad kid.
Yeah. Or like in Zoolander where they're like banging on the computer trying to get the files out.
Right. The files are in the computer. But I think that the reality is, the part we have to focus on here is that the latch was actually not in compliance,
yes.
right? Autoblog really laid that out, the Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standard, explaining that there's a subsection in that standard that details how easy it should be for a driver and passenger to reach over their shoulders for the seatbelt latch plate, which is the part that goes into the buckle, and mandates that the latch plate shouldn't be crammed between vehicle trim or furniture. And while this isn't Ford's first rodeo, I think, I did have some sympathy for them a little bit here because it's only when the seat is in a certain position.
An unspecified position.
Right. They're not providing details on what that position is. And actually, there were no complaints. This came up during basically a routine test.
Yeah.
But not in compliance is not in compliance.
Yeah.
And the reason that these intricate regulations exist is for the very reason that, it's almost funny to say it out loud, but, it's no less reality. But if safety equipment is clunky and difficult, people will not use it.
That's right.
They
will become discouraged.
They will become discouraged. And I'm sorry to, using that word is just a terrible word to use. But we see this with industrial PPE all the time. And the manufacturers who produce it have been making big strides in trying to make it more wearable so people aren't getting headaches or sweating profusely or unable to key in information into their HMI because of a bulky glove or a terrible hard hat or glasses that hurt their ears or whatever. Same concept here, I think. Unfortunately, just like the PPE game, automakers are tasked with designing around it because otherwise it's not a safety system if people aren't using it. So unfortunately, Ford has some work to do to kind of fix this, but you can see why it had to be done.
Yeah. Jeff, I think I responded the same way that everyone did when they first saw this. Like, I just pictured this person like barely reaching back being like, oh, come on, where is it? Come on. Oh, just no one's going to wear this thing. And just like, how hard can it be to just be like, oh, it's right there.
Right.
And pull it. But
what if your hand is too big? I don't know. It sounds like it was kind of jammed up there. Maybe
just really jammed up there
got a
in
big
between
hand?
the
Move the
trim.
seat. It's when the seat's in one position.
Yeah.
Do people know that though? Do people know that it's like, you know what I mean? Do people know that it's like jammed in there because of where their seat is, or are they thinking about that? I don't know.
You'd figure it out.
Would we?
Well, I mean,
Jeff?
so far, everyone has figured it out. I don't know. I didn't look up how
wasn't
many
a customer
vehicles.
thing.
I didn't look up. Oh no, it's 176,000 Ford Broncos that have been out there since at least 2023. The full 176,000, but like been out there for like 3 years now. Not a complaint, Jeff.
But before you start. Don't you think that there will be a liability that takes place here if someone were to get into an accident and blame Ford for that and it was out of compliance?
They broke the law by not putting their seatbelt on. That's their own.
But it's a seatbelt that's out of compliance.
Yeah, no, it's apples and oranges. But you're right. You're both right. You know what? We're all right.
David, we're going to fight and you're just going to be okay with it.
We're all right.
No, we're going to fight and you're in the middle and you're going to be okay with it.
At the base
You
level.
might take some shrapnel on it, but it'll be all right.
Well, I prefer not to have any shrapnel. And at a base level,
You chose your position.
it's out of compliance, right?
No, I agree 100%. Yeah, if you're not in compliance, you need to address this. That's the NHTSA's job. They did not need to use this verbiage.
No.
This feels like there was some sort of axe to grind with somebody going, you know what? They're probably just going to ignore this if we don't really make a stink out of this. So let's make it sound like they're discouraging people from saving their own lives.
Yep. Got to lean in on them.
I did enjoy the number of YouTube videos with Bronco owners just looking discouraged.
Yeah.
I feel discouraged because I can't reach the seatbelt.
So sad.
Producer Eric has provided some video courtesy of the, American Automotive, of people wearing seatbelts incorrectly. What is this from? Anyway. Oh, the new neck belts. Yes. I don't see that being a winner.
No.
I don't see that being a winner.
That's going to go.
But so and it seems like a relatively simple fix.
It is. And the other thing is, first of all, as far as being discouraged, don't you still have all the other things that remind you to put the seatbelt on? That's the reason. I mean, I think most people have gotten into the habit of just grabbing for the seatbelt. Oh, it's got to deal with the alarm going off.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it is a violation, a road violation, all that kind of stuff. So to say it discouraged people from putting the seatbelt on, I think they would have figured out how to get the seatbelt on. Doesn't mean it shouldn't be fixed. Doesn't mean it shouldn't be recalled. All of those types of things. But let's not try to induce panic here or some sort of negative representation of Ford not caring about the people driving their vehicles.
No, I think the panic is over the discouraged people just reaching for it like, I haven't.
You're worried about them.
It's like
That could cause muscle strain. People are dislocating shoulders trying to get to their seatbelt.
200,000 people in America right now driving without seatbelts.
Orthopedic surgeons are seeing a surge in rotator cuff surgeries.
Yeah.
Where is it?
If anything, this has helped them because they've had to, actually stretch their back a little bit to get that seatbelt. Really,
so you're
this is
you're
helping
going
them.
back with this hand. I think they're reaching across.
Because I naturally you just grab it. You just grab it with the left. But I mean, you're right. If it's missing, then you gotta bring the other one over. Maybe get them both in there.
Yeah.
I think you solved it. Two hands.
Yeah, it should have been a two-handed belt.
Use two hands or a barrette. One of the two.
So, very specifically, I think we mentioned this, but the stowed position of the latch plate doesn't have enough space between the seat back and the interior trim to allow the test block unhindered access to this latch plate. And I thought they were actually joking about the barrette, but this sliding clip latch stop that they're going to be attaching as part of the recall is actually called a barrette clip.
And it keeps this piece from sliding into the frame, basically, right? Yeah.
I mean, basically it's like
the trim.
on when you have the a child seat, like the upgrade where you can use the seat belt, but it's like a booster seat, and they have that clip kind of right there.
Yeah.
It's that thing. It's real simple.
Yep.
It's gonna be minutes. But it has been a bad time for the NHTSA, and did either of you guys? Okay, I wanted to make sure to share this, but only if it wasn't a final thought or in case you missed it. So the NHTSA, did you see the recent audit from the Department of Transportation's Inspector General?
No.
It seemed to confirm something everybody already knew.
I was just
I'll let you go.
I was like, I didn't want to share this for the story because I'm like, Jeff is going to champion this. In case you missed it. But so this audit found problems at the NHTSA's Office of Defects Investigation that limit the agency's ability to respond to rapidly evolving problems or severe risks to auto safety. What do we always talk about with the NHTSA? Not doing things quick enough. The agency also doesn't have an integrated computer system for its probes and doesn't consistently follow its own procedures for making safety problems a high priority. Jeff, did you read this article and stand up and just be like, I know it?
No, I saw the headline. I'm like, no duh. I mean, not to sound like Ice-T in every episode of SVU. Wait a minute.
Are
you telling me that there's a government agency that doesn't move fast enough?
Yeah. That's
crazy.
But you guys,
was a solid Ice-T.
They blew this seatbelt thing wide open.
They really did.
Isn't that evidence?
And it only took them after 200,000 vehicles were already sold.
Yeah.
That is on it.
They were able to pinpoint a 3-year-old problem
based on discouragement.
Yes.
Well, it's feelings. People are feeling certain things.
Well,
can't disregard that.
Before anyone else's feelings get hurt, and before we move on to, in case you missed it, we have another word from our new sponsor. BigCommerce provides modern e-commerce technology that works with your existing systems. ERP, OMS, CRM, no problem. Whatever existing business tools and technologies you use today, BigCommerce can integrate using pre-built one-click integrations or customize your automation with its APIs. Make the move to BigCommerce today. All right, on to in case you missed it. The stories that maybe weren't as popular on the websites, but still stand to make a big impact on the industry going forward. I'll go first this week. The one that I picked was this insider Q&A on the future of work shoes. So I recently had the opportunity to speak with Kimberly Page. She's the vice president of global product at Cat Footwear. We talked about the company's approach to new shoe design, expectations from Gen Z workers, and why comfort is still king. Consumers consider work shoes a tool, so they want them to last longer and do more. They also want weatherproofing, cooling, heating, interchangeable, modular parts. These are all things that we're going to see more and more of on work boots. Buyers are also expecting greater sustainability efforts. So they're looking into what the brand is doing from manufacturing sustainability, the materials used in a product, as well as the end of life of a shoe. And while maybe, I think we've seen that a little bit on the consumer side of things, and that is trickling into work boots, work shoes. So that's something that people need to consider. We also talked about Gen Z influence. And one thing that she had to say is that the younger workforce has actually, because they've grown up wearing sneakers, a majority are not willing to sacrifice kind of that comfort. The major change to this safety footwear is that the consumer is not willing to sacrifice comfort for safety. So safety sneakers allow designers to bring in more lifestyle cues to the design, as well as color and different materials. And it just made me remember the first pair of steel toe work shoes that I had to buy. And I don't know if either of you had experienced this ever, but when I did it, there were the white ones and there were the black ones. And they were as generic as possible. And after maybe a few months on the floor, the steel toe would wear right out of it and kind of fall out. So I found it interesting to get a little insight into how footwear is changing for workers, how, because it's seen as a tool, the expectations people have for it, that maybe, where people buy regular shoes seasonally, or like some people in our office, maybe twice a week. But the expectations and how Gen Z has influenced how CAD is designing their footwear. I don't know if you had a chance to check this out, but sometimes something as simple as a shoe is overlooked, Anna?
For sure. And I think companies are also seeing ways that they can incorporate new programs into their businesses where people have more choice about what they wear. I've seen companies like Grainger, for example, they'll take a customer and the customer gives you a voucher for a new pair of shoes every year. And you can just walk into the mobile store, pick out your pair, try it on. There's all these different colors, all these different designs. And your employer can say, like, you can choose between these 7-8 pairs. And I think that kind of stuff goes a long way when you're dealing with, like you said, maybe Gen Z workers who are, their expectations are a little bit different. They want a little bit more from their workplace in terms of like having a say-so in what they wear to work. And so it's cool to see that that footwear is advancing to address some of those things.
Jeff, even with some recent work boots that we've had sent to us to kind of try out, it's almost like you wear it accepting a little bit of discomfort or a little bit of extra heft, or because when the stone slab falls, it's not going to smash your foot into oblivion. And it just seems like we're coming to a real crossroads here where, customers can kind of have both.
Well, it goes back to what Anna was saying before. I mean, if you want people to use the PPE, you need to make it, comfortable at a minimum. I mean, easy to embrace, I guess, whatever you want to say. So anything we can do along those lines, it's definitely a step forward. I think they've come a long way. Oh, yeah. I look at the work boots my dad wore compared to some of the like tennis shoe type stuff that we have now and what CAD is working on here. The other thing I thought was interesting when they talk about consumer preferences and some of the things that they're looking at when they looked at sustainability. Not necessarily something I would have thought about as a key selling element or a sales benefit, but it's interesting that she brought that out, and that's something I look forward to. The other thing I would say to you is if you are buying boots where the steel toes are falling out, try a different brand.
No, this was like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just, I really put them through their paces.
Were you like working in acid or?
I mean, yeah, you remember the acid job that I had.
When you worked in that acid vat?
Yeah, I remember I had to like wade around in acid and like shovel it into buckets so that way we could throw it into the local water canal.
There's a lot of problems.
He is
but you definitely
still
need better
radioactive.
boots.
Yeah. No, but you're right. If you buy, I'm talking about your dad's work boots, when people bought quality work boots, like those are something that, even 30, 40 years later could potentially still be in the closet and usable, as long as you're willing to spend a little bit. But I guarantee that when I was at the factory as a college job, I didn't exactly have a lot to spend on these shoes. It was like, okay, I need steel-toed shoes to have this job. What is the cheapest pair? Because I'm making $200 a week.
Yeah.
The other thing that I found interesting with this interview is I was kind of curious about how, when we talk about more automation going into industrial facilities, whether or not she thinks that that's going to change requirements for work boots and steel toes, stuff like that. And she doesn't think so. She thinks that, safety is always going to be top priority. And even if they're not touching equipment, industrial spaces are always going to kind of require that sort of protection.
Definitely.
All right, Jeff, what is your, in case you missed it this week?
So I actually picked an article that appeared on our sister site, Medical Design Development, talking about the FDA clearing a smartphone stethoscope for medical professionals. So the couple things just in that headline caught my eye. First of all, a smartphone stethoscope, but also this isn't just an app to put on your phone. This is something doctors could actually use. Thought this was pretty cool. Sparrow Bioacoustics announced that it's received clearance from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration to market its software that allows smartphones to be used as medical stethoscopes. The downloadable app uses advanced acoustic processing to provide smartphones with highly sensitive cardiac and pulmonary testing capabilities. Now, they've even gone on to say when they tested this, in trials conducted at Eastern Health Medical Center in Newfoundland, 70% of medical professionals rated Stethoscope superior in diagnostic sound performance over other leading devices. Wow. So the fact that you can download this onto your phone, I thought about a number of different things. First of all, anybody who does have heart issues, potentially, if you can put this on your phone, just as an individual, it's going to give you some sort of data you can provide a medical provider, especially if you're in an urban area. Mm-hmm. Okay, if you don't have somebody right down the block, you've got a cabin up north.
Oh, yeah.
My sister lives up in Eagle River. Sometimes some of those medical facilities, they're a little bit out there.
Yeah, okay? Where they joke about how hopefully you can get to the closest vet.
So in any of those situations, and that's still relatively close, Eagle River, but in other remote areas, you could see this being a huge benefit. Mm-hmm. Also, even some of those places, if this is even in a more well-resourced medical facility, if they're saying that this is still better than a lot of the equipment that's currently available, that's amazing.
Yeah.
In terms of being able to put that on your phone. So it just reinforces, number one, the amount of computing power that we have potentially available to us and all the different resources outside of just, playing sheep's head on my phone that are available to us. This was pretty amazing. Also, again, I'll, use the cliche, but it is a thing that leads to the thing. What else, or what does this lead to? Mm-hmm. If we can get this type of information just to measure pulmonary and cardiac activities right now, and again, the next step is probably capturing that data, sharing that data, putting that out there for quicker diagnosis of what might be ailing somebody. If they're going through a heart attack or they think they might be having one, using a smartphone app to give your doctor a heads up so when you get to the hospital, they know exactly what to do. It just seems like this could really be the genesis of a lot of amazing medical developments. And I just thought it was pretty cool. The fact that it's basically just over the air software upgrades, it's pretty amazing.
The only drawback I saw was how we've seen with the birth of WebMD, like the industry for hypochondriacs has exploded. As soon as my shin hurts and then you start throwing symptoms into WebMD and you're just like,
shin cancer.
That's what's cool here. It's actually, it's the tool.
Yeah.
It's the instrument. It's not relying on what color is it. Well, it's super red and purple and looks terrible.
Yeah.
No, this is what your heart rate actually is. You're fine.
Yeah.
Or you need to get in here.
And I didn't see if there was any tie-in with AI, but likely if this type of data could be fed into or some sort of AI engine, they would be the ones that would kind of flag you or your healthcare provider. And I think it could be incredible. Anna, what'd you think of the smartphone stethoscope?
Yeah, I think it's great. For every person that's sort of a hypochondriac and going into their doctor's office for every little thing, like there's a ton of other people that are on the completely other end of that where they avoid going in out of either fear, cost. Maybe you think like, oh, you know what? It's probably nothing. Mm-hmm. I don't want to take the time. I can't get an appointment. I don't want to pay the copay. I don't have insurance, something like that. So it kind of helps people put an idea together of like whether this is a serious issue or not, or maybe it's just nothing, but or maybe it can tell you that you're fine.
Yeah.
And then you feel better at night.
Peace of mind.
Yeah.
I think that cost and convenience element, those are both great points because just think about how many people don't get a physical every year because they got to make the appointment. Whereas if you could take a lot of that same measurements from home and just send it in and have the doctor talk to you that way or send you an email, it's Pretty cool.
No, it's as you get older, you see it more and more on social media, where somebody in your life goes through some sort of critical health scare. What's the first thing they always say? Get yourselves checked out.
Yeah.
Get yourselves checked out. If you even have a question about it, just go get it checked out. Anna, what is your in case you missed it this week?
Yeah. So I picked a secondary story relating to something that we published recently about Ford and Tesla kind of joining forces on charging. So that was recently announced that Tesla had agreed that Ford customers and Ford drivers of EVs could start using the Tesla charging network with an adapter. So the follow-up was a story about an EV standards group called the Charging Interface Initiative, or CHARIN is what they like to be.
I mean, I'm thinking it's got to be Sharon, right? Sharon.
I'll call it. Okay, we're going to call you Sharon. So Sharon is the industry association driving adoption of a combined charging system. Basically, they're trying to standardize all of the charging networks across the country. And they came out in opposition to this deal that Ford and Tesla made, saying that it was going to result in what they referred to as market fragmentation. They kind of blasted the fact that Ford walked away from the discussions that they were having around standardization. So I don't know. I thought this was interesting. You know, this is obviously going to provide a boost for Ford and Tesla, probably both. And this organization's basically mad because they want one standard charger in place. The idea being that if there's this fragmented network of disparate tech supporting charging, it's going to frustrate drivers, could hamper adoption of EVs. That's a fair point, but this standardization has not taken place yet. Therefore, I think it's hard for me to agree that automakers need to wait to do anything to let this play out, because this could take forever. And then also they would have to all rework and retrofit everything after the fact. They can still do that in the future if this comes to fruition. But to me, it's like you could argue that Ford, who is the second highest seller of EVs in the U.S. right now, behind Tesla only, you know, they're probably seeing some market challenges right now due to the fact that they don't have a robust charging network, and there isn't a robust charging network. Tesla has the largest charging network in the world as of now. They said earlier this year that they would be opening up that charging network to their rivals. So it wasn't exactly a surprise, I don't think, that this stuff is starting to happen. They have an edge here. Ford is leveraging that to their advantage, and I'd argue to the advantage of EV adoption in general, because I think it's going to, for some people, see this and think, okay, well, maybe I can buy a Ford now because I know there's a Tesla charger in my neighborhood, you know? So to me, I was like, all right. I mean, what did you guys think about this? Like, I was still in support, even after reading this, still in support of that Tesla Ford deal.
I guess it reminded me of any time there's a new technology and there are multiple options and everyone's trying to fight to be the standard. When we saw, like when Bluetooth came out, and I can't remember what the alternative was, when any kind of wireless communication came out, there are all different types of standards in terms of how the networks are going to be connected. I mean, even if you just go back to like analog technology, HD DVD versus Blu-ray, VHS, Betamax, there was always a competitor. And while all of that's happening, there are these standards groups that are saying this one is the clear best way to go.
Right.
But then, I don't know, Jeff, I feel like it's the market that determines the winner.
To me, it felt like a short-term, long-term type of thing. Short-term, 100% agree. If we can get more access to these charging networks and Tesla's got everything in place, why not open it up? And if Ford wants to do that, it's kind of their call. I don't think they should be made to feel badly about that. Long term, I agree with Sharon.
Sharon.
Who my brother and I can both attest to that Sharons are difficult to work with.
Oh, no.
So I can see where they're coming from in terms of wanting more commonality, more standardization over the long term. We can get to that, but don't beat up this idea. I don't think we need to put some negative pressure on Ford and Tesla here for just simply trying to work together and use the same station.
Yeah.
These are the types of partnerships we try to champion. within the industry, get people working together to find better solutions going forward.
Okay. Well, before we get out of here, let's do our final thoughts. Anna, what is your final thought this week?
Last day of school today. So it's been a big day. My youngest graduate from 4K today, and they had hats. But it was funny because they all love school so much that they were all super sad.
Yeah.
And I was like, you guys, it's summer break. Like, we can have freezies every day. And when I was a kid, like, I liked school fine, but like summer break hit and I was ready to go.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of like, I'm like, okay, I'm glad that you love school, but don't, I mean,
Not wait.
I know, same. Like, I just don't know what the difference is now. Maybe I'm not that fun. Maybe I need to like dial it up this summer, more beach days. I don't know.
Well, I think part of it is just the nature of having both parents work. Like, I mean, summer was always great for me because I knew that meant I was at home free to do whatever I wanted for a full day. Whereas like
unsupervised.
Yeah, I mean, for my kids, it means you go to one less school. You know, it's like you still have a full day of daycare. And I mean, Miss Mary is really cool, but it's still not the same as like, I can do anything I want out here. The world is my oyster.
That's true.
Jeff, Alex's final thought is Sharons are saints. Shut up, Jeff.
Ooh.
Must have an important Sharon in his life as well.
I didn't know that was going to be the biggest sticking point of the
clearly
podcast.
hasn't met my sister.
Oh, I didn't want to like speculate on which female was a Sharon, and it just felt good to stay out of.
Is her name spelled CHAR capital I capital N?
Pretty close. No, not at all.
Jeff,
my final thoughts.
Yes.
First of all, I don't know if you guys noticed, but we had a kind of a nice uptick in terms of our metrics downloads last week.
Nice.
So if you are a new listener, watcher, audience member, thank you very much. Hopefully we didn't scare you off and you've returned. So appreciate that.
Less Twisted Tea and Bojangles
Man,
chicken beer discussion next
We're
time.
going to ramp up the Bojangles coverage next week. I'm just saying.
We need to get some Bojangles chicken. Check it out.
I want to pair. I bet they pair nicely. I want the chicken and the tea. Is that too much to ask for?
I'm in.
Okay.
The other thing, we've had some people reaching out. I am working on getting more shirts and can koozies. Okay. I'm on it.
Oh, okay.
I appreciate the push. We've got the wheels in motion.
Don't get discouraged.
I am working on that.
Okay.
So those are my final thoughts.
We might have some new wheels in motion just in the interim. But first, my final thought is I was doing an interview this week, and it was with somebody in the HR realm. And we were talking about changing expectations for Gen Z. And this person said, Gen Z wants to know every day where they stand at a company. And I don't know how you guys feel about performance reviews, but once a year just seemed like enough, you know? Once a year, maybe twice a year. This person says that they are asking for monthly performance reviews.
Not interested.
Monthly performance reviews.
If you're watching, Tom.
Jeff.
Well, that goes both ways. First of all, the individual giving the review, I mean, that's prep work for them.
That's a lot of
too.
work, yeah.
Like that was the always thing, you start managing a lot of people. And as far as receiving it, no, man.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Well, and I get it because it's all, they stress that this is about the gamification of the workplace. And I'm like, are we going to get to the point where we're getting a daily, every day, a boss has to give you 5 stars, in order to see where you stand?
Well, I think the three of us are maybe unique in that I think we're internally competitive. Like we just have that nature. Like we see our job as competitive with other outlets, media outlets and stuff like that. And that drives us that way. So I think we don't need anybody internally saying, here's what you did today, here's how you did the next day. We can see how we're doing against our competitors. Yeah. We're also in an industry where we can look at metrics and numbers and all those things.
That's true.
Help validate that. Even if I wasn't, I don't think I need to sit down with my boss every month and know how things are going.
Or have a live rating. Just like, man, I'm only a 4.86 at work. I
think when you do it that frequently, doesn't it kind of become less important?
Demoralizing.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there was a really good Black Mirror episode on people constantly being rated for things, and shows kind of like the post-apocalyptic landscape. Yes, producer Eric reminding us of the beautiful software where we were able to generate
Don't say it.
performance kites for people, and based on which quadrant your kite was flying, you were either succeeding or failing. However, if your department had too many kites flying in the same quadrant, technically you were the failure.
Yeah. Now I feel discouraged.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about the kite ever again.
It was a dark time. Now, Jeff is working on the koozies and he's also working on shirts, but trivia's back for a little bit at least. So I had mentioned the insider Q&A that we did with Cat Footwear, and I just kind of mentioned after the end of it, I was like, hey, you know what? We do a weekly podcast. You put out a lot of footwear. Would you ever be willing to maybe give some away to some of our listeners or viewers of the podcast? So here's how we're going to do it. I've got 3 pairs to give away, so we're going to do it in 3 weeks. And the idea is that you need to have the right answer, and you have to be the first one to email it to me, david@ien.com. And, I'm just thinking that maybe this will incentivize people a little bit to watch us live, just because first person gets a new pair of Cat Kicks. Before we read the trivia, just a reminder that Cat is a world-leading heavy equipment brand, and Cat Footwear harnesses the power of earth movers to break new ground and create a community of doers, builders, creators, and problem solvers. So, if you're a doer, get it done. This question, let's see, you can, so we're giving away Cat Invaders, which are work shoes, or we have the Threshold or Second Shift work boots, and it's winner's choice. So, once you're the winner, I'm going to get your information and get everything sent over to you. Now, the question, which was provided by resident trivia expert Nolan Beilstein, is as follows. Of these manufacturers, who is currently supplying engines for the F1 grid? So, of these manufacturers, which ones are currently supplying engines for the F1 grid? Mercedes, Ford, Renault, Toyota, Maserati, and Ferrari. So email me the right answer, and the first one to get it, a new pair of shoes that will be slightly less fancy than this feline wearing cowboy boots that Eric has sent to all of us, just to brighten up our days. Hopefully we can get that on the video version as well. But before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review, even just a thumbs up on YouTube if you're watching us now. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, David, or Anna at ien.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also subscribe to our daily newsletter and make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first. Also subscribe to us on YouTube at IEN Magazine and join us live every Thursday. All right, for Jeff Franke and Anna Wells, I'm David Manti. This is the Today in Manufacturing podcast, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Today in Manufacturing podcast.